are my spiritual gifts? This is a question that I have been receiving a lot from people recently. They are wanting to activate their soul mission, connect to deeper levels of their multidimensionality, and help the collective consciousness on a more expansive level. And so for that reason, I have decided to offer this as a specific service where I connect them with your Akashic records, your higher self, and your different incarnations to let you know about one of your spiritual gifts and ways to develop it. I have 7 spaces available over the next 2 weeks, and so if you'd like to learn more about these activations, you can check the description box below or the comments. And if you want to see others' summaries of their readings, you can stay tuned because those will be coming up next. I want to tell you about this really amazing spiritual gift that I found inside of my clients' Akashic records in case it unlocks and activates something within your templates as well. When I went into his energy field, I saw a capybara. If you don't know what that is, it's the largest rodent on Earth, and they always are depicted going in and out of the water, and all these different animals are always surrounding them. They magnetize them. I said, I think one of the reasons that you are pulling this capybara into your field is because, one, you're very well liked to my client, but also because when I was talking to his energy body, he said, I want to start working with spirit animals. And I said, okay, well, have you worked with them in the past? And what I meant was from different incarnations. He said, I think so. And I said, well, let's go check. I went into a different part of his field, and I was in a forest. There was a centaur that was there, and I was speaking to him, and it turns out he was a different incarnation of my client, and he was a guardian of this forest. Super cool. I said to him and to you, if you feel like that you have centaur type of energy or guardian of the forest, watcher of the forest, if you will, looking up Cernunnos. He is a Celtic god. He's not a centaur himself, but he has these like big giant horns. That can help you download that template of your different incarnation of being a guardian or a watcher of the forest. And you spell it Cernunnos, Cernunnos. The centaur was saying that woodland creatures would be the best to start with because that's what he did in the different incarnations. So deer, rabbit, squirrels, chipmunks. He was saying that you could go on YouTube and find different guided meditations to do with these animal spirits, or simply go on Google and type them in, squirrel, spirit animal, and read about them and build this Rolodex of animals, and you're going to be able to glean a lot of guidance and wisdom and insight and healing from the consciousness of that animal. The centaur said that he needed to go through a shamanic invocation, and that's basically where you go within yourself to figure out if you were a shaman or have studied with them in different times and space, so you can bring that forward in this incarnation. So I journeyed into the lower world. In shamanism, you have the middle world, that's where us humans live. You have the upper world, and that's where etheric cosmic beings like angels are. Then you have the lower world, and that's where your ancestors reside. So I went down there and I was speaking to them. I saw this ice drop, and his energy body was holding it, and he was looking through it, and I said, can I look through it too? And he said yes. And when I did, I saw tons of ice fractals. I asked if I could follow them. He said yes. When I went to follow one of them, I ended up in a tavern, and there was these frogs everywhere, and I was speaking to them, and I said, where am I? They said Frogton, which I think he meant Frogtown, but he pronounced it Frogton. He said that every animal or creature has a dimension in which they originate from, where that whole dimension is full of those animals. Our earth animals come from there, but you can connect with the spirits in those dimensional planes. I told him that that icicle was almost like a portal device in order to access them, because when I asked the frog, well, how do the different animals traverse through the different dimensions? He said, well, we have a different way. He has to use his icicle. I said, okay. And I said, where is this icicle from? And when I went to go and speak with his ancestors again, they said that all the shamans who are from the specific tribe in which he is have one of those icicle ice drop portal devices, if you will. I'm calling it a device, but it's not a device. But what was really fascinating was I thought that he had Native American shamanic lineages, but I was like, that doesn't seem quite right, and it's because he's actually Inuit shaman. And that he was in a tribe that was originally in Alaska, and that's where I was picking up the Native American, but it wasn't in the main states, it was over there. So he is the first person that I have met that has Inuit lineages. What's really funny is he just got out of the military 2 weeks ago, and one of his friends asked him, well, what do you think you're gonna do now? And he said, I don't know, probably become a shaman. And I said, yeah. Sometimes those things start downloading in before we meet on a session, and it's confirmation from your higher self that you're headed down the right path, because he had done an ayahuasca ceremony, and that's where he got kind of that intuitive nudge of, hey, this might be something that we could do too. I was explaining to him, if this is you too, that when I wanted to get into shamanism, I had some hesitations about that because I didn't have anybody to go train under, and that didn't feel quite right for me to call myself that if I wasn't getting the proper tutelage. My higher self and my guides kept on reiterating to me, persons who have never been part of a shamanic tribe or shamanic lineage and are learning for the first time in this incarnation definitely need to go get trained by somebody. But if you have access to your different incarnations and you are able to communicate with them or channel from them, that is your teacher and your mentor and your guide. And that's a permission slip that you have to give yourself deep within your soul of, I have been this person before, I have been through this training, I am already a practitioner, I need to remember and reawaken these things within myself. Now, obviously, we want to continue training. Continuing education is very important, and even though you might be knowledgeable in one type of shamanism, if you learn about others, very beneficial. I told him, I said, go study in Peruvian shamanism as well. That'll be great for you. But the permission slip that you need is, I am going to reawaken these things within myself and learn from my ancestors who were originally from that tribe. And when we were talking about that icicle, the ice drop, our brain does really well with stories and narratives and symbolism. That was a way that he could see these different timelines and dimensions with the animals of them to access them more easily. And I wanted to share that today in case that is something that you have been seeking, a doorway, a portal, if you will. It doesn't necessarily have to be an icicle or an ice drop. It can be a kaleidoscope, a looking glass like Alice had in Alice in Wonderland, a pirate telescope, whatever is going to resonate best with your body. I was talking the other day about when you're going in to access your Akashic records, oftentimes it feels like you're sitting there waiting for something to happen. One, having questions is really important to reach these levels of self-discovery and learn things about your multidimensionality questions, but also having things to open to find those things. Portal doors, portal keys. It's going to be a little bit more tangible for your human brain and your ego to perceive. Then we got into what he was going to be specifically helping people with in his shamanic practices, and that is helping people relieve themselves of the past, enjoying being in the present, because that is where all creation begins. So releasing grief, resentments, and regret from their energy field. Basically saying you can be a new person in any moment, but when we are carrying all this baggage with us or looking at all of these energetic cords to predict our future, we are just going to get a regurgitation of what we have experienced. So we have to clean slate everything. And you do that through inner child healing or working with younger versions of yourself in your 20s or 30s or your 40s and helping them realize that they are in the new reality and they can step into this new life at any moment, at any time, but we need to release all this over here. And so I would love to hear in the comments if this resonated with you, if it unlocked an activated something, and I hope you have a super magical day. I want to tell you about this really awesome spiritual gift that I found within my client's Akashic records in case it unlocks and activates something within your templates as well. When I went into her energy field, I saw her take her hand and went like this and swiped up, and beautiful rainbow colors, and then all these orbs started popping up, kind of look like Orbeez, the little kids' toys that are squishy, but then also like Fruit Loops. And when I got closer to them, they got a lot bigger where I could stick my head through one of them, and I said, hello. And as soon as I did, I was shifted to the other side of the window pane-esque rainbow wall, and I was looking back at it, and I turned around and there was a set of stairs. So I started walking towards it and then going down. Stairs in journeys like this are often representative of going into your subconscious or deeper within your soul. And when I got to the bottom, there was this beautiful garden. You're giving very much fairy-esque. There was flowers and a lot of vines and foliage. And I met with her energy body down there, and she asked me to take a seat. And so we were sitting and chatting, and she said, I help people find their inner sanctuaries. I'm gonna be reading from my notes here so I get everything, okay? She said, I help people go within themselves for healing and recalibration when they need to take a break from their 3D life. And this is also a place of creation, a place where you can clear your mind and work outside of your ego and negative thoughts and limiting beliefs, where you can let your imagination run wild, because that's how we manifest. It's a place where you can energetically embody your higher self, because we need to know what that feels like in order to shift into them. She also helps people figure out what their soul's desires are, because oftentimes people are unclear about what it is that they want out of life, or they're living under somebody else's expectations of them, whether it's family, a partner, societal, cultural, religious expectations. It's also a place where people can learn to relax their central nervous system, which is really important because a lot of people are living in perpetual states of fight and flight and anxiety. And that makes it really difficult to manifest, to heal. She said to hear your higher self and your guides, tap into your spiritual gifts, or to make aligned decisions. Fear causes a lot of havoc in our lives. She was saying that when people are trying to call their dream life in, their desires, their goals, the achievements that they want, all of those things are rooted in peace. Those future versions of yourself that have those things. And so you need to experience more peace in the here and now in order to be a vibrational match. And that's where the inner sanctuaries come in. It is a place where you can temporarily and then more permanently feel those throughout the day. It's a home-based location that you can continuously go into and refill your cup, and also feel that sense of relaxation throughout the day. A lot of people have not felt this before. That deep sense of eternal peace where you are able to shed off all of the heavy density of the earth plane and come back to your multidimensional self that is outside of the confines of whatever you're experiencing on this plane. Okay? Trauma, capitalism, overstimulation by social media, whatever that is, this is a place where we can take a break from that and realign to our true selves, so that when we do snap back in to the 3D, we're able to do that from a higher perspective and with more tools and resources, because we're able to more clearly look through the lenses of our higher self. Let's talk about ways to develop this and how to apply it, either with yourself or with other people. One is going in and finding your own sanctuary or sanctuaries. There can be multiples. They can also look very different depending on what chapters you are in your life, or if you're working with other people. Theirs could look completely different, and it could be different every time you journey with them. And some people are going to have the same place every single time. Mine looked like a garden because there was a actual physical fairy garden in my city that I used to go to. It was called my soul place, where I could connect with my higher self.
and I really enjoyed it there, and so that's why mine was a representator of that. But it could really be anything. It could be mountainscape, under the ocean, in the clouds, whatever is a peaceful, serene place for that person. You could take a course on how to guide people through meditations, or honestly you could go on Tube, and because Tube University and there are lots of instructors on there that will teach you how to offer guided meditations. Looking up discovery questions around soul mission and manifesting. If you go on Google and you type in questions to ask in my Akashic records, you will find a plethora of them on there for different areas in life, not just soul mission and manifesting. But it's really about how you're framing the questions and what is the intention behind them. So I always suggest asking ones that are how, what, and why, because that helps you get to the deeper root of things. When you're asking when, should, would, yes, and no, those are very ambiguous and they're very definitive, so they're not going to give you as much information back. But just you reading these different questions is going to help you discover deeper facets of yourself when you are in your inner sanctuaries or when you are helping others. Learning about shamanic journeying, because this is a form of that, and Akashic work. This is the type of journeying that I do in order to read these things within people's Akashic fields in the first place. So that's very beneficial. And also, their energy body recommended playing sound baths if she or anybody else wanted to take people on journeys, because it helps relax your central nervous system, or some type of meditative music. Also playing birds chirping or water running. From a physiology standpoint, when we were cave persons, birds are the first thing to leave the environment if there's a predator around, and so they would look to the birds to figure out if it's a safe space. And so you can still apply that today with you listening to it and helping relax your central nervous system. Her energy body saying that you could meet with people one-on-one on Zoom and take them on this journey into their inner sanctuary. You could also host group sessions if you rent out a space or you go to the park and you have 5 or 6 people with you, and take everyone on a similar inner sanctuary journey with one another. You also don't have to meet with people to do this. You can do it in your own time, tap into their field, meet with their etheric body, take them to the inner sanctuary and glean messages and downloads and insights, and then send a voice note summary to the client. You could also do guided meditations on Tube. You could make 20 or 30 or however many you want and tap into the group's Akashic records and the group's higher self, who will be listening to it in the future to figure out what type of journey is best going to serve them. I said if you do want to do group journeying, listening to whimsical and magical guided meditations yourself is really beneficial. It helps open up your imaginative scape and learn how to cultivate and craft stories and narratives and beautiful journeys to take others on. And I recommended listening to child meditations because they're so fun and joyous. There's a channel on Tube called New Horizons, and she has hundreds and hundreds of them, and they were really beneficial in helping me do the things that I do in my coaching practice now. Lastly, utilizing ChatGPT. You can go on there and have some prompts that help you build a guided meditation, and you can add in different pieces and facets to amplify it and make it your own. Gives you a good framework to start out with. I would love to hear in the comments if this resonated with you, if it helped open up and unlock something within yourself, and if you are going to go on an inner sanctuary journey. I'm going to tell you about this really awesome spiritual gift that I found inside of my client's Akashic records, in case it opens up and unlocks a template within you as well. When I went into his energy field, I saw that he was moving his hands like this, and I said, oh, this is a form of light language, because there's many different types. So you can create light language art, you can speak it, it sounds like tongues, but it's not. It's a universal language that you understand with your spiritual ears instead of your native language. You can also send light language to people using symbols that you create with your hands. However, I also saw this big fish that was coming through his field, and it was a sturgeon. They're super cute if you want to look them up. And I said, oh, that's very interesting. How does that correlate here? And what his higher self told me was that, okay, there's a lot of facets here. So psychic surgery is akin to light language and light weaving. It is taking light and energy and pulling that down almost like you have a needle and you are able to surgically repair things that are going on within somebody's physical body. You can also repair things in their chakra system. Light weaving is very similar, but it's not always in reference to healing the physical body. Oftentimes it is bringing in light and energy and moving your hands in specific patterns in order to do auric and light body repairs. And so with him, his higher self told me that he is actually a water weaver, which I have never heard of before. And I said, okay, what is that? And because we are made out of 70% of water, he is able to change the molecular structuring of the water molecules in persons' bodies so that their physical vessel, their human, can heal through these various type of physical ailments. Also infusing the water within the persons with his intentions to help them heal, because water is an amplifier. It changes the molecular structuring. Psychic surgery, light weaving, and now water weaving, those are all modalities that are newer in the collective consciousness. There's not as much information about them. People who are having this activated are going to end up being teachers and mentors and guides to help facilitate more healers getting into them. That's what I was explaining to him, because he has a lot of health issues that he is currently working through for various different things. When we are the way showers of these modalities and just generally energy healers, a lot of the times we end up experiencing in our 3D human incarnation what we are ultimately going to help others with. It's a trial by fire. If you want to be a quantum healer, we have to have something to quantum heal within ourselves. And so I was explaining to him that this gift activation that he was receiving is going to help him heal his physical body so that way he can do that with others. We're going to give some tips here that his higher self recommended to help amplify this gift in case this unlocks something for you today. You say, oh, I want to get into water weaving. So looking at light language art, you can go on Instagram, type that in. It's these really beautiful pictures that have all of these symbols on them to activate templates within you or to help with healing, various things. But because water weaving is very similar to light weaving, which is in the umbrella of light language, it can help unlock things within your Akashic records and help you remember this ability that you have within yourself. Also, working with the water element, I was saying that he could speak intentions into his own water that he is drinking, or when he's in the bathtub or in the shower, asking it to change its molecular structure to help him with his physical healing. I went on Tube because there is some information about light weaving, and I typed in water codes. We all know what light codes are. Apparently there are water codes that people can speak over you. Or there's also water light language, which I was not aware of either. So you can find those on Tube. And being around bodies of water themselves, oceans, rivers, lakes, it is going to help amplify this gift within yourself, help you understand how to work with the element of water. Listening to sound baths, things with harps or koshi chimes, rain sticks, those all change the molecular structure of the water within yourself. Learning about water-based starseed planets like Lumeria, Atlantis, Mintaka, because there's a lot of energy healers on those planets that have reincarnated here, but you can download new insights and guidance and wisdom through learning about the planetary systems and their history. I want to share a different section of his energy field that I thought was very interesting because I had never seen it in this context before. When I went into his field, originally I saw a tiger and it was so cute and so beautiful, and I was like, oh my gosh, and it started running, and I was like, hold on girl, I'm gonna try and keep up with you. And it took me to this garden, and it was kind of this dark fairy energy, a lot of overgrown bushes, stone everywhere, not negative or anything, just for the context. And this woman came forward and she had a hood on her head, and she asked me to sit with her, and I said okay. So we sat, and she said, give me your hand. And I said, all right. And then she stabbed a knife through it, which stuck into the table. And I was like, why did you do that? Because it didn't hurt me. It was energetically doing it. And she said, I need your body to be tethered here so that you don't get lost where we're about to go. And I was like, ma'am, I didn't really need you to do that because I already know how to tether myself. And she was like, we got to make sure. I said, okay. Start walking, and all of a sudden we're in this place where there's a lot of shadow beings walking around. And I said, are these all humans? And she said, most of them, but some of them are other beings. And I said, well, what are they doing? And she said, this is the shadows of the lost. I said, okay. And I went to go and speak with one of them, and they weren't talking back to me. And I asked her why they weren't able to communicate, and she said that they have dulled their senses with how we are in present day, like overstimulation with social media and just being very attuned to our actual physical senses instead of our spiritual senses, and nobody teaching us these things and why they're important. And she was expressing that my client is really good at helping people pinpoint what their clair abilities are, their spiritual gifts, helping them understand why it's important to listen to their intuition, how to listen to their intuition. And she was expressing that he would be able to create a Lightworker or Empath 101 course, and it'd be really successful because he had a lot of esoteric knowledge and wisdom, and he had been on this path himself. This guide of his, this older woman, and said he's kind of like a human form of battery jumper cables, where he's able to jolt people into the remembrance of their multidimensionality so that they can connect back into themselves and get out of those shadow aspects, because the reason they were being presented that way is people had forgotten their magic within, and it was making life very dull and dense and heavy. Sorry about that car noise. And so he was able to give them that re-spark back within themselves. So that was really cool, the imagery that she took me on in that place, the shadows of the lost. I was like, this is giving very dramatic. So I would love to hear in the comments if this message resonated with you, if it unlocked or activated something within your templates, and I hope you have a super magical day.
I'm going to tell you about this really awesome gift that I found inside of my clients' Akashic records in case it unlocks and activates something within your templates as well. When I went into her energy field, I saw this jaguar, almost a panther type of animal, but it didn't look like the ones that are here on Earth, but for the context, and it was blue and purple and had spots on it. And I ran up to it and hugged it around its neck, and a different incarnation of mine was coming forward. At that time, it wasn't me in the present, a different version of me. And she said, oh my God, I thought y'all were extinct. I haven't seen one of you in forever. And I started crying, and I looked over next to it, and there was a woman. And you know those witch doctors that were around during the plague, and they had those long nose masks? She was wearing one, not sure why, but she was a different version of my client. And she was saying that my client has the ability to channel a very specific gift from her. She said what she is able to do, because she also works in the Akashic records and is a timeline reader, she is going to be able to reach way far back in people's records and help reconnect them with these magical creatures and these beings that are guardians and familiars that also have spiritual gifts themselves that are going to be able to help the incarnations that she works with in this time and space. And so she's going to be working with healers in order to reconnect them with those magical creatures and beings. And that's what she was doing with me, is I have worked with one of those jaguar panthers, and she was able to reconnect me, which, what a blessing. And I said some of the ways that you can develop this is, one, working with spirit animals, because those are very 3D and tangible, and they're easier for our human mind to conceptualize. But past that, there is a Harry Potter movie, and it's called Fantastic Beasts or Fantastical Beasts. And he is a guardian of these different creatures. And not to spoil it, okay, if you haven't seen it, it's not a huge spoiler, but he goes to this different dimension where he's the caretaker of a lot of them. And I said, you should go watch that because it'll help download this template of yours. Also, going on Pinterest and looking at different magical fantasy creatures and animals, because that will expand your consciousness and it will get you used to seeing things that you're not used to, so that when you come across them in the ethers, you're not like, oh, what the heck are you? I've never seen something like you before. So it is expanding your imagination, and it's also allowing you to perceive them more easily if you have seen things that kind of look like them. For me, I've seen jaguars and panthers in the past, so there, in fact, it was easier for me to perceive this being that I had a connection with way back in my Akashic records. I also said she's going to be able to bring so much knowledge and wisdom from these beings, because when people think of guardians or familiars, they often think of unicorns and fairies and phoenixes or mermaids. We love them, but these beings are from the way back. Very, 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 very ancient history that a lot of people have either forgotten about, or they need a reconnection, or they need to learn about them. And so one of the things that she can do is also tell people about the creatures, kind of like I do when I come on and I say, hey, let me talk about these spiritual gifts that I found in other people's records. She can be doing that with these magical creatures. This is not something that is necessarily exclusive to her. I haven't seen this gift before as a very unique energetic signature reading. If you are listening to this and you have this inner resonance within you of saying, I think that I have done this work as well, or I have these type of templates, one, watching that movie is going to be really beneficial, but then also looking at different pictures to expand your consciousness and imagination. And just listening to this right now will help you start to unlock and receive those downloads and the intuitive nudges and the guides from those different incarnations of yourself, so that you can pull it through and experience that gift in this time and space as well. I would love to hear in the comments if this resonated with you, and I hope you have a super magical day.
I'm going to share something that I just learned in somebody's Akashic records, which absolutely blew my mind, and I did not know that we were able to do. Just us as a collective. So if you want to maybe unlock something within your records, this will be for you. So before I connected with her on Zoom, I went into her field to see if there was any incarnations that wanted to come forward to support her in this one, and one did. And I met her on a cloud, and I was like, where are we? And she said, we're in Atlas, and it's a planet that's outside of this galaxy, and they had a sky city. I said, oh, are you from here? And she said, no, I astral projected here. She said, this is my kind of second home. And I said, oh, cool. And she handed me a compass to look at, and all of a sudden I went into the compass, and then we were in London in the 1970s, and she took me to her flat and her apartment, and she asked if I would go to her room with her. And when I did, it had all these crystals and plants, very metaphysical-esque, and she asked me to sit with her. And so we were sitting face to face, and she said, hold out your hand, and she put a coin inside of it, and she said, close it and shake it up. I said, okay. And then I opened it back up, and she said, I want you to look at the coin. What do you see? And I was like, I just see a coin. And she said, no, I want you to look deeper into it. So I closed my eyes, and I heard a dog barking, and then I was in a field, and I saw a farmer, and he was holding this pitchfork, and he was looking out over his farm. And he was just so proud, and he was watching his dog. And then I jumped back into the room with her. And when I am figuring out people's spiritual gifts for them, oftentimes I'm serving as a energy body to figure out what those are. So this version of her, this different incarnation, was saying that she has the ability to pick up objects that hold memories within them. Not people that she knows, even. She can do that with people that she knows, but just anything that holds memories within it. And she's able to astral project to places and spaces within time, okay, within history. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And it far extends past that. Okay, so she said that her gift was psychometry. It's clairtangency, and a lot of psychic mediums are able to hold items from persons who have passed on to the other side and look through their memories and tell clients information about them, right? She said that all of these items that have been held create energetic coordinates within the memories, especially if there's a strong emotion with them, and you can actually ride the wave of the memory and then astral project into that person's, history. Okay, so time traveling. And she said it's not just with objects, though. She said that she could go to the library or go to the bookstore and find an autobiography by somebody. It has to be an autobiography, and I'll explain why. But you can find an autobiography. You don't even have to read it. You just hold it in your hands, and then you can astral project to different places that author has been. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. The reason that it would have to be an autobiography is because if somebody else was reading or wrote the book about somebody, then you would be reading the memories of the person that wrote the book. That's not the actual person themselves. So I use Jane Goodall, for example, because she has an autobiography, the woman that worked with the primates. If you got that book and then you meditated with it, she can go to all these different places that Jane had been to. But if she was utilizing a book somebody else wrote about Jane, then technically she would be reading this other person's memories. So it gets even more wild than that. Different incarnations said it doesn't have to be with people from the past, though. You could do that with autobiographies now of people whom are living. This is where I was like, oh, whoa. So I told her that when she is astral projecting, it's with her energy body, right? Like her body is going to stay in whatever room that she is in, but her energy fields will be there. However, her higher self said that she is able to show up to these persons in real time as a human being and speak to them as if she had a physical form. For example, she could go back in time and speak to Albert Einstein, and she would be speaking to him in a human form. And I said, isn't that kind of stepping on their free will? And she said, no. She said, because it would just be like if Albert Einstein ran into like a random person in his time and space. He could either speak to them or not. And then she gave me an example of somebody that she really looked up to, Matthias DeStefano, and he's like a spiritual guy. And I said, yeah, technically you could astral travel to go speak with him right now. Like it would be like if y'all were meeting in a coffee shop and you're like, hey, I know who you are. And if he wanted to speak to you, he could. And if not, that's okay too. Her herself said that she could also go to the future. That we needed to start with current or the past, though, because it's more tangible for our human to experience. And the future is unknown because it's unwritten, but technically it's not, because everything is happening all at one time. But that's what Nikolai Tesla was doing. He was astral projecting in the future and bringing back information to the here and now. And so what was really wild to me was her higher self was saying that happens now. That there are persons who are not an actual physical form that are astral projecting through time and space and who are speaking to us, and they're not actually in a physical human form. They're actually from somewhere else and they're astral projecting. And I was like, whoa. Okay. And I just thought this was so cool because I haven't seen this before, of being able to hold an object. And she said the reason that objects are easier to start with is because they're dense, like dense matter being compressed, and it's easier to frequency read them. And when you have memories with emotions attached to them, it's a easier process. But I told her eventually she wouldn't have to use those. And what's even cooler than that is I said, okay, this cup is a cup in this incarnation, but it could be a alien, let's say a Syrian starseed in a different incarnation. I said, you could hold this cup and yes, read my memories off of it and astral project to places that I have been in this incarnation, but you could go even deeper with your reading and you could read the memories of the Syrian starseed that this was in a different incarnation, and then you could go to Sirius or wherever else that person has been in their travels, or that cup has been in their travels. And so I was saying, this is so cool, it's so expansive. And the reason I wanted to come on and share it is because if she can do it, other people can too. Like, these are all things that we can learn how to do. Some of us already have inherently these gifts and abilities. Sometimes we don't remember them. That's the session that we were doing together. She was like, hey, I feel like I might have some karmic lessons or some vows, something going on with my soul contract, spiritual gifts, soul mission I'm not able to see. And so I was able to, relay that information, but I was explaining to her at the same time, it's not really you learning how to do it. You already have that template within. You've already been doing this in other incarnations. Like that other one that came forward, like she already knew how to do it. They're one and the same soul. And I said, this incarnation is actually wanting to come forward and mentor you in it so that you can accelerate in this incarnation with the gift. But that also means that, other people are able to do this as well. So hopefully this unlocks something within your Akashic records or with your understandings. I would love to hear if you had any insights come up while I was sharing these things, or if you feel like you have these abilities yourself.